My wife cheated with her boss, and now she's claiming half of our $750, $0 house and $200, $0 in savings, despite knowing he was the other woman all along and hiding a $150, $0 side deal from me. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing all this down, but life has a way of throwing punches when you least expect them. My name's Mike, and I was married to Lisa for 8 years. We had a pretty good life, big house, nice cars, decent jobs. We weren't exactly rich, but enough to keep us comfortable, or so I thought. Looking back, there were little signs that things weren't quite right. She started working late more often, claiming it was just her boss pushing for deadlines. I'd ask about it, and she'd brush me off with a sharp attitude, saying I was being paranoid or insecure. Honestly, I thought maybe I was overreacting. She's always had a sharp tongue, quick to dismiss anything she didn't want to hear. But then the little things started piling up. For one, she'd be secretive about her phone. She'd hide it when I entered the room, or suddenly get very defensive if I asked to see it. She'd change the passcode, which I found odd. Then I noticed her spending more time on her laptop, always late into the night with the screen turned away from me. She'd say she was working on a project or catching up on some emails, but I could see the glint in her eye, the way she'd quickly close the window if I peeked over her shoulder. One day I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I figured I'd surprise her, maybe get dinner started. As I unlocked the door, I heard muffled voices coming from the bedroom. My stomach dropped. I crept closer, trying to listen. It was her voice, definitely, but what she was saying made my blood run cold. She was laughing flirtatiously with someone. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but the tone was unmistakably intimate. I pushed open the door without knocking. There she was, Lisa, in her work clothes, tangled up with a guy I'd never seen before. He was tall, handsome, with a confident smirk. She was leaning into him, touching his arm, laughing at something he said. The guy looked right at me as I entered, and I saw the moment her face changed from relaxed to panic. I froze, staring at this scene I'd never imagined I'd walk into. My mind was racing, trying to process what I was seeing. Lisa's face went pale, then she tried to cover it up with a fake smile. "Mike, I can explain," she said, voice trembling, but I already knew I'd seen enough. I saw her phone on the nightstand, an open message thread with explicit messages, pictures exchanged, all from her boss, the guy she was with, her boss, David. I knew him by name. My world crumbled in that instant. All the late nights, the secretive behavior, the lies, it all made sense now. She'd been cheating on me with her boss, David, for months, and the worst part, she knew I knew. I could see it in her eyes that she was trying to lie her way out of it, but the truth was right there, staring back at her from that screen. I didn't say a word. Instead, I turned around and left the room. I needed space to think. My mind was spinning, anger, betrayal, sadness. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this? How could she lie to me for so long? We had a life, a house, savings, everything we worked for. And she was cheating with her boss, the very man who she said was just a friend or a mentor. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, staring at the wall, replaying everything. I knew I had to confront her properly, get the full story, but part of me already knew the answer. Lisa was a bitch when she wanted to be. She'd always been a master at lying, twisting things to her advantage. She'd probably try to deny everything, spin some story about how it was just sex, a mistake, nothing serious. But it was serious enough for me. I had a house, a future, and a lot of money invested in this marriage. And now all of that was threatened. Not just by the affair, but by her attempt to control the situation with her lies and manipulation. I realized I couldn't just brush this off. I had to decide what to do next, whether to fight for the marriage or cut her loose and take what's mine. But one thing was clear: I wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was tight with a mix of rage and heartbreak. I knew I had to face her, but I wasn't ready for her barrage of lies. I just wanted the truth, plain and simple. No more bullshit. Lisa was in the kitchen, pretending everything was normal, pouring herself a coffee like she hadn't just been caught cheating on me the night before. She looked up, saw my face, and immediately got defensive. "You're overreacting, Mike. You're always so paranoid. I don't know what you think you saw, but I swear," I cut her off. "Save it. I saw the messages, the pictures. You've been sleeping with David, haven't you?" My voice was cold, but inside I was boiling. How could she lie so easily? Her eyes flickered, and for a second I thought she was going to deny it outright. But then she sighed, and her bitchy mask slipped just a little. "Look, Mike," she said, crossing her arms. "It's not what you think. I was just having some fun. It doesn't mean anything. It's just sex. I didn't mean to hurt you." I couldn't believe her. Just sex. That's what she called it. She'd been sneaking around, betraying everything we built, and now she's trying to minimize it. I felt my fists tight. "It's not just sex. You're sleeping with your boss, Lisa. You're lying to my face, hiding a side deal worth $150, $0. How long has this been going on? How many times?" She shrugged, trying to act nonchalant, but I saw the flicker of guilt behind her eyes. "It's not like that. It just happened. I didn't plan for it. And the side deal, that's none of your business." That's when I lost it. I told her I knew about the side deal, that I'd found the bank statements, the emails. She tried to deny everything, but the proof was staring her right in the face. I told her I was done with her lies. I told her she was a manipulative bitch, that she had no right to play innocent after what she'd done. She started crying, sniffling, trying to make me feel guilty. "Mike, please, don't do this. I love you. It was just sex, and I swear I'll stop. I didn't mean for it to get this far." But I wasn't buying it. I'd been before, but now I was furious. I told her if she thought I'd just forgive and forget, she was dead wrong. I said I'd be looking into everything, her phone, her bank accounts, the entire mess she'd created. She looked at me like I'd just shot her. That's when I started making plans. I knew I couldn't stay in the house with her anymore. Not after what I'd seen, what I knew. I needed to get my head straight, figure out my next move. But I also knew that I wouldn't let her get away with this. Not without a fight. I called a lawyer later that day. I wanted to know what my rights were, especially with the house and the savings. I was stunned when the lawyer told me she was claiming half the house and half of the savings, despite knowing about the affair and the side deal. I couldn't believe she thought she had some right to my money after everything she'd done. That's when I realized this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about her trying to take everything I had worked for. I kept replaying everything that day, trying to piece it all together. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. But I also knew I had to be smart. I couldn't just burn everything down in anger. I had to play this carefully, protect my assets, and make sure she didn't walk away with a penny more than she deserved, if anything at all. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the house I thought was ours. The house that now felt like a prison. I realized I'd been stupid to trust her, to ignore the signs. But I also knew I wasn't going down without a fight. I'd come too far to let her walk all over me now, and I was determined to make her regret every lie, every betrayal. Over the next few days, everything felt like a whirlwind. I spent my time gathering evidence, talking to the lawyer, and trying to figure out the best way to protect what was mine. Lisa kept up her act, acting like nothing had changed, but I saw through her fake tears and constant denial. She was trying to manipulate me as usual, but I was done playing nice. One morning, I decided to dig deeper into her financials. I hired a private investigator just to get a clear picture. Turns out, she'd been hiding more than just the affair and the side deal. There were bank accounts under her sister's name, offshore investments, and even some cash stashed away in a safe deposit box. I couldn't believe how deep her lies went. The woman I thought I knew was a master manipulator, and I'd been blind for so long. When I confronted her with the new findings, she got even more bitchy. "You're just jealous, Mike," she spat. "You're insecure. This doesn't change anything. I still love you. I just needed some fun. You're so controlling." She threw in the classic guilt trip, trying to make me feel like I was the bad guy for catching her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew her game. Meanwhile, the lawyer explained that with all her hidden assets, she had a good shot at claiming half the house and the savings, even if she'd been unfaithful. That's when I realized I had to act fast. I started compiling all the evidence, her secret messages, bank statements, the Pie's report. I wanted to be ready for any legal battle. One night it all came to a head. I sat her down and told her I knew everything, the side deal, the offshore accounts, the affair. I told her she was not getting a dime of our house or savings without a fight. I told her I'd be filing for divorce and I'd be fighting her for every penny. She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk, trying to dismiss me, but I could see the panic behind her eyes. That's when she started lying again, claiming she'd done nothing wrong. Mike, you don't understand. David's just a friend. I swear I didn't mean for it to get out of control. You're the one who's always suspicious. Maybe if you weren't so insecure, you'd see I'm still loyal to you. She was spinning her usual bullshit, trying to gaslight me into backing down, but I'd had enough. I told her I wasn't falling for her lies anymore. I'd seen the proof, her explicit messages, the secret accounts, the side deal. I told her that if she thought she was getting half my house and savings, she'd better think again. I was prepared to fight her tooth and nail. That night, I started making plans to move out. I found a small apartment nearby, just enough to get some space and breathe. I told her I was done with her manipulations, done with the lies, and I meant it. I wouldn't let her take everything I'd worked for, especially not after what she'd done. While I was packing up some essentials, she came into the room trying to act sweet, saying she'd change, that she loved me, that she'd do anything to fix this. But I knew better. I'd seen her true colors. She was a bitchy, manipulative woman who thought she could twist her way out of everything, even betrayal. I looked her in the eye and told her she was a liar and a cheater, that she'd lost the right to play the victim. I promised her I'd fight her for every dollar, every inch of that house, and every penny of our savings, and I told her she'd regret ever crossing me. As I left that night, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. I knew I'd be okay, better without her, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. Still, I was determined to come out of this stronger. I'd learned a harsh lesson about trust and manipulation, and I'd never let anyone do this to me again. The fight wasn't over yet, but I was ready for what was coming. The days that followed were a blur of legal meetings, moving out, and trying to keep my head above water. I was still stunned by how far Lisa was willing to go to control everything. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was overreacting, and that she deserved half the house and the savings because she was still my wife. Her tone was bitchy and dismissive, like I was some inconvenience she wanted to brush aside. Honestly, it made my blood boil. I had my lawyer draw up the papers. We filed for divorce, citing infidelity and financial deception as grounds. I made sure to include everything I'd uncovered: her secret offshore accounts, the side deal, the texts with David, and her attempts to hide assets. I wanted to be prepared for her to try and claim half, but I was ready to fight for every cent, especially the house and savings. I knew she'd try to argue that she was entitled to half because of some fake contribution, but I had the proof to counter that. She got wind of the divorce filing pretty fast. That's when she really showed her true colors. She called me every name in the book: bitch, asshole, manipulative bastard, and accused me of trying to ruin her life. Her voice was sharp, full of venom, as she insisted I was just jealous and insecure. She even claimed I'd been cheating on her all along, trying to turn the tables. Honestly, I was so sick of her lies, I just hung up the phone and blocked her number. But here, where it gets interesting. While she was still throwing her tantrums, I decided I needed to hit back hard. I hired a forensic accountant to go through her financials, and what I found was shocking. She'd been funneling money into offshore accounts, hiding assets, and even transferring some of the side deal money into her sister's account. All of that was enough to give me leverage in court. I also had the Pies report, which confirmed her secret communications with David, including explicit messages she'd never intended me to see. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I trusted her. We had a life together, and she'd thrown it all away for some quick sex and greed. I kept replaying the moments I caught her: her smirk, her lies, her dismissiveness, and it made me want to scream. But I also knew I had to stay calm. If I wanted to win this, I had to be strategic. I started documenting everything. Every email, every bank statement, every text message. I wanted to be airtight. I also went through our joint accounts, making sure I had a clear picture of every dollar. My goal was to prevent her from claiming more than she was entitled to, if anything. I knew she'd try to spin it as some kind of contribution, but I was ready. I'd fight her for the house, the savings, and even the side deal money she'd tried to hide. Meanwhile, she was still playing the victim, crying to friends and family about how I was trying to ruin her, how she'd made a mistake but still loved me. It was all bullshit. She was trying to manipulate everyone around her, but I didn't care anymore. I knew who she was, an entitled, manipulative woman who'd do anything for money and control. I started to see the cracks in her facade. She'd been so confident, so bitchy, trying to dismiss my concerns and spin her lies, but now she was panicking. She knew I had the upper hand. I wasn't going to let her walk away with half my house or the savings. I'd fought too hard for this life, and I wasn't about to let her take it all in some greedy, manipulative attempt. One evening, she called me again, trying to sweet-talk her way back into my good graces. "Mike, I know I messed up, but I love you. We can fix this. Just come home and we'll work everything out." Her voice was honeyed, but I could hear the bitchiness underneath. I told her I'd heard enough of her lies and that I wasn't interested in her manipulations anymore. I told her I'd see her in court and that I'd fight her for everything she thought she could take. That night, I sat alone in my new apartment, feeling a strange mix of relief and rage. I'd lost a lot: trust, stability, my marriage, but I'd gained clarity. I knew now that Lisa was a manipulative, entitled woman who thought she could cheat, lie, and steal her way through life. But I was done being the victim. I was ready to fight her in court, to protect what was mine, and to finally move on from this nightmare. It was the start of a long battle, but I was prepared for it. I knew I'd come out of this stronger, even if it meant losing the woman I once loved. The court date finally arrived after weeks of legal back and forth, and I knew I had to be prepared for everything. Lisa showed up with her bitchy smirk, trying to act like she was the victim, like she was entitled to half the house, the savings, and whatever else she could squeeze out of me. She kept insisting she deserved what she contributed, even though she'd been hiding assets and cheating on me behind my back. I couldn't stand her attitude, her manipulative tone, trying to make me look like the villain. My lawyer laid out all the evidence: bank statements, offshore accounts, the private investigator's report, and her own texts with David. It was all there. She squirmed in her seat as the judge reviewed everything, trying to deny her involvement, deny the affair, deny the side deal. But the proof was undeniable. I could see her getting more and more bitchy, trying to argue her way out of it, but it was useless. When it was my turn, I laid out everything I'd uncovered. I told the court how she'd been lying and manipulating, how she'd secretly been funneling money offshore, hiding assets, and cheating on me with her boss. I explained the side deal she'd kept from me, 150, zero she'd tried to shield from our joint accounts, and how she was claiming half of the house and savings despite all her lies. I made it clear I had the proof, and I was fighting for what was rightfully mine. Lisa's face twisted in anger and frustration. She tried to argue that she'd contributed equally, that she was still my wife, and that she deserved half of everything. She even had the nerve to call me insecure and jealous. The judge wasn't buying it. I saw the look in her eyes. She knew she was losing. That bitchy smirk she always wore was gone, replaced with that look of desperation. The judge finally made a ruling. She awarded me the house and the savings, citing the evidence of her deception and infidelity. Lisa's claim to half was, at least for now. The judge said she'd have to settle for a smaller share after the divorce, but that she didn't get to walk away with everything she was trying to take. I felt a rush of relief. The fight was over and I'd come out on top, at least for now. But the aftermath was another story entirely. Lisa was furious. She stormed out of the courtroom, yelling and cursing, calling me every name she could think of. She told everyone around that I was a controlling, jealous bastard who just wanted to ruin her life. I didn't care. I'd won the legal battle, but I knew this wasn't the end. She'd still try to manipulate, lie, and twist things to her advantage. In the weeks that followed, I started rebuilding my life. I moved into a smaller place, far away from her bitchy attitude and manipulative ways. I cut ties with her family, who were always more on her side anyway. I knew she'd try to come back, to worm her way into my life again, but I was done with her lies and games. I learned a lot through this process about trust, betrayal, and the importance of protecting what's yours. Looking back, I realized the biggest lesson I learned is that some women are just manipulative, entitled, and willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want. Lisa wasn't just cheating, she was trying to take everything I had built. But I stood my ground, fought for what was rightfully mine, and came out stronger. I'll never let anyone manipulate me like that again. And honestly, I'm just glad it's over. Now I can finally move on, free from her bitchy, lying shadow. After everything settled legally, I thought I'd finally get some peace. But the truth is, the emotional scars run deep. I moved out, started over, and tried to rebuild my life from scratch. It wasn't easy. Every time I saw a woman who reminded me of Lisa, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. Trust is a fragile thing, and losing it so completely changed how I see relationships. I've come to realize that betrayal isn't just about the affair or the money. It's about the lies, the manipulation, the way someone can pretend to be your partner while secretly working against you. Lisa's bitchiness, her constant lies, her attempts to control everything, those were her ways of asserting power, even if it meant destroying what we had. I learned that I had to be smarter, more cautious, and more aware of the signs I ignored for too long. The biggest lesson for me: never ignore the little red flags. The secretive phone behavior, the late nights, the quick dismissals, those were all warning signs. I wish I'd trusted my instincts sooner. But I also learned that fighting for yourself, even when it feels hopeless, is worth it. I fought her in court, I protected my assets, and I refused to let her manipulate me into giving her more than she deserved. That feeling of standing up for myself, that's what kept me going. Now I'm focused on moving forward. I've started dating again, cautiously, but with a new perspective. I know how dangerous manipulation can be, and I won't let anyone pull the wool over my eyes. Again, I'm more careful about who I trust and more aware of how people can hide their true intentions behind a bitchy smile or a fake apology. Looking back, I realized that betrayal can come in many forms: sex, lies, greed, and it can destroy everything you think is real. But it also teaches you to be stronger, more resilient. I've learned that sometimes the only way to truly win is to walk away and rebuild from the ground up. Lisa lost a lot that day: her marriage, her facade, her control. And I lost her, but I gained clarity and a renewed sense of self-worth. So, to anyone out there going through something similar, trust your gut, protect your assets, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Some people will try to manipulate you or steal from you, but if you stand firm and play your cards right, you can come out the other side stronger and finally free.